Yesterday, I watched a video that alleged that Harry and Meghan are nearly finished, and it was also alluding to trouble within their marriage and also trouble with these business contracts that they apparently had because they had some issues with Spotify and so forth. So this could be, allegedly doing some damage or harm to the marriage union. So today we're going to be talking about Harry and Meghan's astrology, but we're going to specifically look at Meghan Markle's astrology chart since she actually had a really big change in her astrology chart. So that's why I'm going to be taking a look at that one today. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get all of the updates. I do videos on the royal family, but I also do videos on celebrities, politicians, monthly predictions, and so forth. I practice Vedic sidereal astrology, which is a little bit different than Western tropical astrology. So make sure you go to the appropriate calculator if you're trying to look up your sign. You may notice that the charts look a little different. If you're interested in a personal private reading, check for details down below. I'm running a discount called the Endless Summer Discount, and it's 40% if you use codename Thor at checkout. I'm going to be running that for the month of July. So make sure you type that code in at checkout. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Meghan's chart and get an idea what's going on with this. We're going to the paint program here. And disclaimer, this reading is for entertainment purposes only. I am just speculating on the astrological energies in Meghan Markle's chart, and these are all allegedlys. Okay, so one thing I noticed with Meghan's chart was she was in a K2 Bhukti from July of 2022 all the way till just recently, June 24th of 2023. So she just left this K2 Bhukti. And one of the things to notice about where K2 is in Meghan's chart is it's in the seventh house of marriage and contracts. So when we talk about deals falling apart or marriages even falling apart or any kind of loss is indicated by K2. So she just was in this karmic period. Notice that she was in this K2 period as well when the coronation of King Charles also occurred as well. So there's a sense of loss all around, and K2 can be losses on a physical material level, but also emotional, spiritual level. So it's definitely associated with loss. But let's talk about the major change that just occurred, because this is going to give us some clues on what's going on with Meghan. So she recently actually went into the Venus Bhukti. And Venus Bhukti started June 24th, 2023. And she's going to be in this Bhukti for quite a while. It's going to be all the way until February of 2026. Okay, so this is almost a 2.5, almost 3 year long Bhukti where Venus is going to be the prevailing energy for the next 2.5 years in Meghan's chart. If you're new to Vedic astrology, these dashas that we're looking at right now, these periods, are basically when karma is highlighted. So when Venus is highlighted from June 2023 to February of 2026, that means a lot of the karmas associated with this planet, Venus, is going to be dominating the narrative and life experience of Meghan Markle. Okay. Now, first of all, Venus does deal with contracts and so forth. It does deal with love and romance, but it's kind of iffy on, it really depends on what ascendant sign you have and moon sign you have on what it really represents as well. You have to look at the house rulerships. So one thing I like to take note of is if somebody is like in a divorce period, I always like to take a look at if they're in a bhukti or a mahadasha where there could be a divorce. So one of the divorce periods, besides the sixth house and the eighth house, this sixth house can be like a really conflictive type of divorce. The eighth house can be a sudden divorce. Like your partner just like ups and leaves one day, and then it's like you're in a state of shock. She's not in a period of the sixth lord or the eighth lord because Venus rules the 11th house and fourth house. So it's definitely not a sense of shock and awe type situation. but Venus is in the second house. Okay. Second house can actually be associated with divorce in some cases. And let me explain how the second house works, because you might be thinking, okay, how did the second house, how would that lead to a divorce? Well, you got to think of what are the Maraca houses. The Maraca houses are known as the killer houses. Okay. And the Maraca houses are the seventh house and the second house. So the fact that Venus is in the second house really is a big deal. And when Venus is in the second house can represent a relationship reaching a saturation point. Okay. The saturation point is literally what that represents is when you're in a relationship and you've kind of on a soul level learned everything you need to learn about that relationship. So I'm sure some of you have been in those type of relationships where there really isn't much more to learn about the relationship. Like you kind of understand who the person is, you understand what the situation is, and it's just kind of a record on repeat. Okay, it's just like you're in a loop. Well, that's what happens a lot of times. And some people get divorced during periods of the second Lord, or in this case, Venus being in the second house. It can occur. Now, when it happens in a period of the second Lord, typically what happens, and I'm not saying this is all allegedly, I'm not saying that Meghan is doing this, but typically there's a new love interest that comes onto the scene. So there is kind of more of more of a segue between marriages when you're in a period where the second house is involved. So the sixth house would be more like argumentative conflict. Eighth house would be shock and awe. Second house would be like you're getting disinterested in your current partner, and then up and comes this new, this new partner that has this new path or this new attraction that's happening. So sometimes we can see that there's a new love or some sort of new relationship coming online. And the fact that she's in Venus, it speaks a lot too. So it does show that this idea of romance, quite possibly could happen during this period. Now, the other point I want to bring up, there's actually several points to bring up in this chart. Okay, so we see that there's the potential for a new relationship to form. The other thing I want to bring up is she's in the Jupiter Mahadasha from 2015. This is the larger time period. So she's in the Jupiter Mahadasha from 2015. And let me check on my other software till 2031. So it's a pretty long period. Let me put the paint program back up. So 2031. Okay, she's in this Jupiter. Oops, let me switch screens here. I think I accidentally went to Kala instead of paint. Here we go. Okay. 2015 to 2031. Now, Jupiter, if we take a look, it's in the third house, which is a difficult house, but it's with Saturn. Okay. So Saturn rules the seventh house and the eighth house. So that's something to take in consideration, that Jupiter, it's with Saturn that rules the eighth house. It also rules the sixth house and the ninth house. Okay. So she's definitely in a period where there could be a divorce, even in the Mahadasha, because she's in the Mahadasha of Jupiter. There's definitely this idea. Now, the other thing I want to point out during this period, which is quite interesting, this Venus Bhukti that she's in, is, let's clean up the chart. If we look at where Venus is located, we also want to look at it. Where is it located first in relation to the Mahadasha Lord, which is Jupiter, and also in relation to the moon? Okay. And if we count the houses all the way, okay, and I'm just marking it this is 12 houses. So Venus is 12 houses from moon, and Venus is 12 houses from Jupiter. Well, 12th house, if any of you remember my previous videos, or maybe you're familiar with astrology, 12th house represents losses and endings. So we can definitely say there's some sort of ending or losses. Now, typically when you're in a period of 12th from moon, there's a sense of emotional distancing that's happening. So for example, and I'm speculating on this, Harry and Meghan could have been together, and maybe a lot of the drama and everything was kind of keeping them together, and they were in this honeymoon period in the beginning of their relationship. Well, then you're in this period of 12th from moon where there's this emotional distancing. Okay, there's like this emotional loss. There's kind of this idea of like you're already kind of starting to separate this emotional identity that you may have with this person, and you may actually start spending more time alone. You might start spending time in solitude out in nature and basically without your partner. So 12th from moon and 12th from Jupiter, because Jupiter is the Mahadasha lord, this represents this emotional distancing that is occurring during this period. So definitely this is all, I mean, we're looking at many factors here. The Jupiter Mahadasha being the sixth lord. Okay. Then we're looking at Venus is in the second house. This could indicate a new love interest that's going to be occurring. Then we got 12th from moon and 12th from Jupiter, again, representing losses. So when you're looking at astrology charts, you really want to look for confluence. Okay. And the karmas right now, they're very separative. There's a separative effect that's happening. There's this separative effect. Now, I feel that a large part of the distancing actually happened in the preceding Bhukti. So I actually think that a lot of this spiritual or emotional separation that's happening may have actually taken place during the K2 Bhukti that we talked about in the beginning of this video. Okay. And now Venus is kind of just providing this new pathway. So K2, usually there's an ending, and then Venus is providing some sort of new pathway forward out of the situation. Now, the other thing I want to point out with this is, and let me clean up the chart let me clean up the chart, is transiting Saturn is in the 8th house of Meghan's chart. Now, the 8th house is the house of death and rebirth. Okay, so 8th house could represent an old part of you basically dies, and then a new part of you is reborn, like rising from the ashes like a phoenix, right? So 8th house is very, it does represent something like divorce, because your old identity is tied with your spouse. It's tied with the marital state. It's tied with this relationship. And then the 8th house, you're reborn as a new person. So Meghan would be, no longer have this connection to the royal family. She would be born as this independent individual, person through a divorce process. So it is a process of death and rebirth. But when Saturn's there in the 8th house, what it can represent is their stalled movement towards that rebirth. Okay. Stalled, delayed. Because remember, at the end of the day, what Saturn does is Saturn freezes the house that it's in. So Saturn is freezing this idea of having this new identity, being reborn. And even if it's like having this new identity because of this divorce, it's freezing it. The other thing I want to point out is Saturn is going to be in the 6th house from moon. Okay. So when it's in 6th house from moon, there is resistance towards this idea of divorce. Now there might be this emotional distancing that's happening. We might already start seeing the groundwork being laid for this separation to happen, but it's being stalled or delayed. There's this Saturn there. So there's definitely this idea of further negotiations, maybe, if there is any talk between those two, which I'm not sure. There would definitely be this lengthy, drawn out, secretive type of meetings taking place, especially since the 8th house represents secrecy. And let me go back to, okay. So the 8th house represents secrecy. This could be a long, drawn out process. So even if they're in talks about it, and I've heard other readers talk about that they believe that Harry and Meghan might be in talks already. Maybe they're already talking about that the relationship is over on some sort of level, but they got to do it in a certain way, or they got to do it, to appease both sides. Maybe you guys can comment down below and let me know more about that. But definitely, there's a period of a potential new love interest. Now, this might not happen right away, okay, because the Venus Bhukti just started on June 24th. But we could definitely see if there's like a new person, say a year from now, there could be this new way forward. When we looked at Harry's chart, I did feel like it's going to be a more difficult period for him. I still feel, and this is my prediction, I do feel there's going to be a separation and divorce. And I feel like Prince Harry is going to get the worst end of the deal, based on the karma that I see. Because if we take a look at Prince Harry's chart, he's going to be in like a K2, like Mars period. And I'll do another video on this, but it's like a really volatile period where, who knows, maybe Meghan's kind of more having this bridge to this new situation that's occurring. So let me know what you think below. So this idea of that this thing could be, falling apart or nearly at the end where these tabloids are saying it, it's very much possible. It's very, at least what I'm seeing is there's this emotional distancing that's taking place. Who knows how long the actual physical material, the contract of the marriage will actually last. Sometimes people can remain in like loveless marriages for quite a long time, but I do feel like this is going to end. I feel like it might be a little bit more delayed. We might see, if anything, like a separation first before we actually see, just an all out, divorce. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. And, I don't want my videos to be sitting here necessarily picking on Harry and Meghan. I actually find it kind of tragic, actually, because, Prince Harry, especially, was so well beloved in the country and he was so well liked. And then it was just like he went down this road where, there's the royal family's alienated now. So there's all this repercussions and fallout. So, we have to realize that these are people, these are beings that are going to be in pain. Even though they might be making bad decisions, there's pain, there's fallout. Even people that support the royal family and support Prince Harry, and even, Meghan Markle. Sometimes we forget about her. Everyone's human, and this is affecting a lot of people. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.